Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 22nd meeting of the Titusville City Council at 6:30 p.m. We have a quorum. I'll declare this meeting open. Is there a Reverend Kopek out there? I don't see one. Okay. Since we have no one to say an invocation, please join me in a moment of silence. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, would you please read the procedures for public comment?
Yes, sir. Individuals wishing to speak on public and non-public hearing agenda items must complete a sign-up card and present it to the clerk prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Sign-up and oath cards are available on the table in the council chamber. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions and requests from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions, but not both. No sign-up card is required. Citizens shall not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address the pending issues, and citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak on all items.
Thank you, Clerk. Next item is approval of minutes.
I'd move to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting on January 8, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Dr. Stokel.
I thought I was first.
You can't always be first.
I know. I try.
Okay, any corrections or discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Like sign. Hearing none. Passes unanimously. Special recognitions and presentations. We have none. Next item is boards and commissions.
Yes, sir. Item 6A is accept the Historic Preservation Board semi-annual report as written.
All right. I accept a motion to that.
Move for approval?
I have a motion for approval. Do I have a second? Member Stokel. Any discussion? All those in favor? I'm sorry, we do have. That was, I heard the click, I didn't really see it. Yes, ma'am.
The only thing, as I was reading through this the other day, it crossed my mind that a lot of history that we know about Titusville is getting lost. Things about our town that have gone on, and actually I was talking to somebody and I was saying, these are the things my father told me, my mother told me, my grandparents told me, and they're no longer here. And at some point, you know, all that stuff's going to be gone. So I would ask that we, city manager, encourage the Historic Preservation Board to look for property where things happened, and when they see it, to actually mark it as this is what happened here. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I go back to Al Capone, and I heard about Al Capone from my parents, my grandparents. They're gone. And so it's somewhere out there in this nebulous universe that, you know, he was here, but there's really nothing that marks that.
Is there anything at the museum, the historic museum downtown?
I don't know if they have anything.
You might want to take a look down there, because they have quite a bit of stuff down there.
But it would be interesting as people are riding their bikes around town. You know, one of the questions was, well, one of the things my parents told me, my grandparents told me, is that he used to hang out at the Whispering Hills Country Club.
I remember that.
You remember
Not
that?
that he was here, but the Whispering Hills Country Club. When that was
You know,
here.
we're old, but we're not that old.
That's right, that's right.
But I mean, I remember stories, and those kind of things are disappearing. And so as people ride around town on bikes and as more bicyclists come into town, it would be interesting for people to realize this was our history. So,
Well, I'm not discounting what you're saying. I think we should do that and can do that, ask the historic board to look into these
Yeah.
things. But one of the places they should go first is to see what information is at the Historic Museum, so.
I agree.
Mr. City Manager, will you see
Yes, sir.
that message gets to the Historic
Will do.
Board? Thank you. Okay, still need a motion, I believe.
Move to accept the Historic Preservation Board semi-annual report as written.
Did I, wait, I already had one? I'm
I
sorry.
thought we did.
Now I got two. Save that for the next one.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion and a second for the Historic Preservation Board. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes. Yes. Any opposed, like sign? Passes unanimously. Flag and Memorial Committee.
Yeah, so we have the chairman, Al, come on up and
Oh,
give us
great.
your report.
Hi, Al.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is truly an honor for me to be here in front of you again this year. Per Resolution 27-2003, the Flag and Memorial Committee held elections in its October 16th, 2018 meeting. The committee unanimously elected Al Terrio as chairman and Dennis Jones as vice chairman. The current committee members are comprised with the following members. Myself as chair, representing the Knights of Columbus and the Civil Air Patrol. Dennis Jones, our vice chair, representing the North Brevard Honor Guard. Carol Pedersen, representing the Pilots Club of Titusville. Tommy Northcutt, representing the American Legion Post 1. Barbara Rathbone with Valiant Air Command. Karen Coughlin from the American Space Museum. Tom Patton from the Disabled Veterans Post 109. Carol Fuller with the American Legion Post 1 Auxiliary. Nancy Lester with the Daughters of the American Revolution. And Sam de Blasio with the Friends of the Cemetery. And Mr. Bob Swink with the Elks Lodge number 2113. Per Resolution 27-2003, the members request the Council's affirmation of the committee officers and the membership for 2018-2019. In 2017-2018, the committee held 8 regular meetings. 1 regular meeting was canceled due to a lack of quorum. The committee traditionally suspends meetings from June through September each year. Chairman and members continue to provide assistance regarding protocol for flying the American flag on an annual basis. This year, the committee sponsored the following events. January 27th, our astronaut memorial ceremony, and we were in partnership with the American Space Museum. On May 28th, Memorial Day ceremonies were held in partnership with the American Legion Post 1. On June 14th, our Flag Day ceremony and massing of the colors. The ceremony was held at the Elks Lodge. On November 11th, Veterans Day, ceremonies were held in partnership with the American Legion Post 1. Avenue of the Flags, otherwise known as U.S. Highway 1. New flags are still continue to be a cost savings compared to the free-flying flags that were used in the past. The flags fly continuously except during the Christmas season when they are replaced with city holiday decorations. Perhaps one of the least known aspects of the Avenue of Flags is that they exist solely through the donation and generosity of our community members. The committee wishes to thank the city officials for supporting the above efforts and would like to especially thank City Manager Mr. Scott Larice, the Public Works Department, and their staff for the Avenue of the Flags and the patriotic events. The committee also recognizes District 1 Brevard County Parks and Recreation Department for its commitment and assistance in the patriotic ceremonies. We thank our community for their patriotism, for their helping to fly the flags on US Highway 1, and for supporting the community's annual patriotic projects. This report was unanimously approved by the Flag and Memorial Committee December 18th, 2018, respectfully submitted by myself, Al Terrio, Chairman, and attested to by Gail Gilchrist, our committee secretary. On a personal note, I am thrilled and honored to be a member of a community where its elected officials are so supportive of our patriotic events and our veterans. Every event that we have, you folks are out there with us to help celebrate these folks. On your desks in front of you is a folded flag. This year, during Wreaths Across America, we had another program that was also at the cemetery. It's the Field of 660 Flags. The Field of 660 Flags was started locally by Robin Thomas and Linked Arms for Veterans. That field of flags represents the yearly loss by self-inflicted wounds where veterans have taken their own lives. We're losing 660 veterans a year. Out of the several fields that we've had, each field has had 660 flags. These flags need to be retired. Although they're only this big, they are an American flag, and they need to be retired. As part of the Flag and Memorial Committee, Robin came to me and asked me what we could do with them. And I told her we have to retire them. She worked with the Honor Guard at Patrick Air Force Base who folded these flags for us. So they are starting a tradition for us where we are going to fold what we can. Right now I've got a bucket of about 500 flags. We're going to fold some of them, and we are going to retire some of them. But as you know, from our hearts to you, as the folks that make this happen for us, we'd like to present you with these. Thank you.
Thank you,
Any
sir.
questions for the committee?
Any questions?
I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for the flag. It's real touching for sure. And I feel really bad when you're talking about veterans who, they go out there and put their lives on the line, and then they come back home and, because they're in despair, they lose their lives. And
Yes, sir.
we got to do something about that.
Yes,
for
sir.
sure. So this is really touching to me that you would give us one of these flags for sure. And, I don't take this for granted at all. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, sir.
I do have one question, though, because I don't understand it. You were saying the new flags are still continuing to be a cost savings compared to the free flying flag that was used in the past. What does that mean?
The flags that we're currently flying are actually considered a banner, and they are made specifically for Titusville. We are like the only city in the nation that is flying these flags, and the company makes them specifically for us to the measurements that we need to fit on our poles. These flags, because of the way they're hung, actually last longer than just a regular small flag
Right.
that's flapping in the
Flapping in the
breeze.
wind. Okay.
So that's why they're a cost savings to us.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? If not, I would personally like to thank you, sir, for all of your group, the Flag and Memorial Committee does, and we all are proud of you and make us proud of our city with your attention to our flag. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. And everybody, I hope to see you this Saturday at Sandpoint Park for our astronaut memorial.
I'll be there. Okay, we need a motion on the flag and...
I move to accept the Flag and Memorial Committee's annual report as presented.
jump right in. I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Next item.
TIF LLC committee member, the term of member James Ball expires on 31 January 2019. He has expressed his willingness and desire to continue to serve on this committee for another 3-year term scheduled to expire on 31 January 2022. Currently, there are no other applications on file for your consideration.
Council, what's your pleasure?
I would move to reappoint Jim Ball to the TIPA LLC Management Committee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Next, sir.
Planning and zoning appointments. The terms of regular members, John Chambers, Dwight Severs, Robin Taylor, and alternate member Susan Noel Copeland expire on 31 January 2019. Regular members Chambers, Severs, and Taylor, and alternate member Noel Copeland have expressed their willingness and desire to continue to serve on this board for a 2-year term to expire on 31 January 2021. There is one additional application on file presented to council, hard copy. We received it today, Mr. Joseph L. Richardson. And in order to consider this, since it was arrived late, you will have to table the item.
I see you're up, Member Nelson.
Please. My motion or my desire would be to table this. Joe Richardson called me last Tuesday. He had called the city and inquired about applying for this position. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a misunderstanding or what, he was told that there were no vacancies. So he did not apply, and then when I got my agenda Friday, I called him because he called me and said, you know, I want to apply, but I can't apply, there's no vacancies. And I discussed it with the city manager and the city attorney, and I said, well, go ahead and go down and apply. He's qualified. He spent 8 years on planning and zoning before. He's been on city council, was the chairperson for planning and zoning, and actually helped write the land development code. So he's very qualified, and that's not to say the other people are not qualified. You know, in reading, they're qualified. But out of fairness, you know, he tried to put his application in, and because of the misunderstanding, he was not able to, so I would ask to table it for 2 weeks.
To the next meeting.
To the next meeting. 3 weeks.
Member Stokel.
Yep, I just wanted to second that. I do think we should table it, and I wanted to see, just to make sure that this may not happen again, if there's something that we can do, because I think there could be a miscommunication of there's no vacancies open at that time because their terms technically don't expire until the end of the month, where maybe we can let the public know of dates where terms are up potentially, so we could try to get some more involvement and more people applying. I would like to see that happen.
Well, my thought was if somebody calls and says, I'm interested in a board, whether there's a vacancy or not, let's take the application, say, please come down and apply, so that when there is a vacancy, we can consider it.
That's a good idea, too.
Member Jordan.
I guess I have a different tack than you all. I believe in process, and I hear what you're saying for sure, but in fairness of those who did apply, there was a timeline for this, correct?
Yes.
My understanding.
Yes.
There was a timeline, and because it sounds like there was some miscommunication, the next question I would ask is, if something else comes up, someone can say, not saying that he's not telling the truth or anything, but someone else can say, well, they didn't, someone told me that there wasn't a vacancy, or someone told me this is not the way it is, and so now we're delaying the process because someone did not follow the process. So I'm a little concerned about that, as making an exception when, I mean, this is an application process that we've had for years, right? Just saying, process is processes.
I can see that point. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I get to answer it.
Are you through, sir?
I think the problem is if you're on the board, you have your application in, so you just sort of roll it over. Whereas he's not on that board, So my understanding is, and Mr. Broom can correct me if I'm wrong, is that he needs to come in and make an application. I would agree if somebody called me and said, you know, Joe Smo out there told me there's no vacancy, would be one thing. But to pick up the phone and say, to call the city and get misinformation for whatever reason, and then to call one of your council people and say, I tried, I want this, I would like to be considered for this position. To me, that's a little different. Because he has taken those affirmative steps to try to go forward and has been thwarted in a sense. So to me, that's a little bit different.
I'm going to jump in here as my prerogative allows me. I kind of feel as Mr. Jordan does, to be honest with you. There was a miscommunication. I don't think the person meant to say, if that's exactly the way that they put it, I don't know. I have no reason to doubt Mr. Richardson, however. But I think it was a miscommunication. They just meant all of the positions have applicants. I don't know, frankly, what we will accomplish by delaying it, because the people that are on there have been doing this and have been doing a good job. So my advice to him was just to go ahead and put an application in regardless, so that when a person retires or quits or whatever, that he'll be first in line for it. And he seemed to think that was acceptable. Now, I'm not speaking for him. It's just in our conversation, but that's my feelings on it. Member Stokel.
Do we know when the next P&Z meeting is? If we were to table it, would that interfere? Because these terms expire the 31st.
Mr. City Manager?
Okay, I was just
Mr.
curious
City
about that.
Attorney, do you?
Well, it'll be the Tuesday before the next council meeting.
So it'd be the 5th, I guess? 6th? The Wednesday
I'm sorry,
before?
Wednesday,
Okay.
before next Tuesday.
So that potentially would, I think, hinder us. So I'm okay whether or not you guys want to table. Again, to Member Nelson's point, I do think that I would like to see us try to be a little bit more proactive. I think that we've made some good progress with getting more applicants, and I don't want to see that get hindered because there's some miscommunication going on or whatever it may be. Because I do think we have some momentum happening. Again, I agree with you, Mr. Jordan. I don't think that we should bend the rules for one person necessarily, but if there is something that's going on, and I guess being on here for over 2 years now, it's used to just be one person, one position, one person, one position. I'd like to see us get out of that. And if that means changing the way we do things, maybe we should look at that.
Thank you. Anything else? Vice Mayor?
Councilmember Nelson, it sounds to me like he was in touch with you in time.
He was in touch with me after Tuesday morning. And to be honest with you, I feel a little guilty because if I had stopped and picked up the phone and verified what was going on, I could have called him and said, go down there and apply, put your application in.
And I wasn't at all saying that to put the burden on you.
No, I'm
What I was
just
really
saying-
saying was when we get into the process, and I agree that, process is process. I've had more than one argument with referees about process. But that being said, but that being said, I also am concerned that we have been up here for a couple of years now, having a hard time getting people to apply. And if this is not going to interfere with the movement forward of planning and zoning, I would be of the mind of perhaps to table this. It's not the end of the world if we table it for a couple of weeks. And I think that's, pretty much where I'm at. He inquired early enough. Some miscommunication took place. We're not under a time frame that if we don't get this done today, we can't meet with the planning and zoning. They're going to meet anyway, no, things will be fine. And I get to your point too, those who were on there, it's not, oh, they got in there and they did theirs just rolls over.
Right.
So it's not as though, they couldn't have missed it if they were told the wrong thing as well.
No.
So, and again, I don't know that he was told the wrong thing, but I do know Joe well enough to know that if he's told the right thing and he's told the date to get it in, it's going to be in. So I tend to think that it's worthy of, especially dealing with the difficulty that we've had in getting quality people on some boards. I would like to back it up and take a deep breath and say perhaps there was some miscommunication to this applicant, and he would have had it on time had he been told the proper time.
You, just so I make sure you understand, you do have an application there from him. He has put his application in. It just wouldn't come up this time. It would come up the next time, or if somebody retires or whatever goes off. But, okay, just want to make sure everybody understands that. What's your pleasure? Would you like to make a motion?
My motion would be to table this appointment to the next meeting.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Mayor, I'd like to,
Yes,
these
sir.
appointments expire the 31st. So if part of the motion is to table to the next council meeting, it ought to include to extend these appointments until your next appointment is made, so they don't expire on the 31st.
So if I can amend my motion, it would
I
be
agree with that.
to, and to extend the appointments until
Your appointment is made at the next
the
meeting.
appointment is made.
The second hold?
Second holds.
Second holds. Any further discussion? Clerk, I'd like to do this on a roll call, so we don't have to go through a roll call anyway.
Yes, sir. Member Jordan?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
No.
Vice Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Incidentally, I don't know if I included, I did tell Mr. Richardson that this is what I would do this evening, so. That's fine. All right, thank you. Okay, it passes with, I guess, just myself and negative? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Next item.
Accept the Planning and Zoning Commission semi-annual report as written.
I would move to accept the Planning and Zoning Commission semi-annual report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. This item is petitions and requests from the public present. Does anybody wish to come up and speak? Members of the public on any item? Or any item, I guess. No, you don't, ma'am. This is petitions and requests. Actually, you can speak on anything you want,
Okay, thank you.
but you only have 3 minutes to do it.
I have 3 minutes?
Yes, your
I
name-
know y'all want to get home to your families.
Yes.
Yes.
Your name and address, please.
I'm Jeanette Duesberg. Hi, Coach Diesel. He coached my boys for many years. Yes, he did. Yeah, Jeanette Duesberg. And I'm here because of the proposed future land use that I received in the mail right here. And I live on Tomoka Avenue, which is right here, next to that area where there is a beautiful pond and acres of woods, which is the home to many birds and animals.
Actually, I'm going to let you speak, but this is an item that would have come up. But since you started, why don't you go ahead and complete
Okay.
it, all right? And we'll give you a little extra time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. I'm, honored to be able to speak tonight, and I did find some information that I hoped might impact your decision-making when you discuss this issue. According to the World Wildlife Federation, humans are behind the current rate of species extinction, which is at least 100 to 1,000 times higher than nature intended. As I was researching, I found some terms that might be interesting to you in making those decisions. I found these terms on the website for the United States Fish and Wildlife Federation and Service. Protected means a species of animal or plant which is forbidden by law to harm or destroy. Threatened is likely to become endangered in the near future unless steps are taken to protect and manage a species and/or its habitat for its survival. Endangered means the immediate danger of extinction unless the threatened species or its habitat is fully protected. The National Audubon Society defines special concern as species with declining populations. There are so many animals out there, and at the perimeter of the woods, I see families of raccoons, armadillos, moles, possums, and squirrels. The alligators are in the pond and many fish. The American alligator is threatened. I see so many birds, I can't even tell you how many. I'd be here all night. They are beautiful, but I'm just going to mention a few.
You have 30 seconds, ma'am.
Okay, the snowy egret. These are listed as special concern. The great white heron and little blue heron, special concern. The sandhill crane. The sandhill crane is threatened. The white ibis. The white ibis is protected. Sparrows, several species are endangered. Jays, the scrub jays, are threatened. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service states that an individual can be fined up to $25,000 for harming any listed species. Does that mean I'm out?
Yes, ma'am, I'm afraid
Okay.
so. I also have a light
Thank you for listening to that much.
from
I
the
was
city.
almost done.
I think you may have to do it again, though. Mr. City Attorney, is that your light?
Yes, ma'am. I pushed that when she began to speak because I was going to let you know that is an agenda item and the comments should be made under that agenda item.
Yes. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that item this evening, so it may be pulled, but I thought I would let you go anyway because we all heard you now at this point.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else on petitions and requests? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Dwight Sievers, resident of Titusville. I did have the honor and pleasure when Joe Richardson was age 18 to swear him in as a member of the city council.
Right.
Recall it quite clearly, and him serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. So I do recall that specifically. Matter of fact, Joe and I 3 or 4 months ago talked about him serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I encouraged him to make an application, and I think ultimately if he is appointed, he would do an excellent job.
That I do remember, that he was on council.
Yes, he was.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else under petitions and requests? I see none. We'll go to the next item, consent agenda.
Yes, sir. Council, does any member want to pull any of the items for consent, items A through E, or correction, F? We have no cards from the assembly, so I'll read the items for the record, and there is a resolution, so this will require a roll call vote. Consent agenda item 8A, approve the Bulletproof Vest Award in the amount of $91.80 and associated budget amendment. Consent agenda item 8B, approve the award of the contract subject to resolution of contract terms by the city attorney and city manager to BS&A Software in the amount of $873,080 for the purchase, customization, and implementation of the new ERP system, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. In addition, it is also recommended that the city council authorize the city manager to use third-party software applications that integrate within the BS&A software that have been designed as a preferred vendors by BS&A without having to solicitate use of other third-party software products without record of successful integration with the new BS&A software. Consent agenda item 8C, approve the attached budget amendment and the purchase of an image scanner from Toshiba of Orlando, Florida in the amount of $6,842.78 for utility engineering. Consent agenda item 8D, approve a 5-year contract in the approximate amount of $68,000 over a 5-year term with an option to renew for a second 5-year term to retain the current medical director, Regional Emergency Medical Specialist Incorporated, as required by State Statute 201, Rule 64J FAC, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. Consent agenda item 8E, approve resolution 1-2019 of the city of Titusville, Florida, endorsing East Coast Greenway route through the city of Titusville. And consent agenda item 8F, approve the award of contract to perform paint and body repairs on city light and medium heavy-duty vehicles with an initial one-year term and 4 option years to renew year renewals to Pat Fisher Nissan of Titusville, Florida as the primary contractor and to Rice's Body Shop as a secondary contractor. The combination of the amounts not to exceed $100,000 per year for both contracts, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract and city manager to allocate the authorized funds to each contract as required to meet city needs.
All right, thank you, sir. I need a motion for the consent agenda, items A through F.
Move to approve the consent agenda, items A through F.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, clerk.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Member Stokel? Member Jordan?
Passes unanimously. Item number 9, ordinances, second reading.
The Planning and Zoning Commission, acting as the local planning agency, recommended tabling to their 6 February 2019 meeting. Tabling CPA number 2018-04 to amend the future land use map from commercial low intensity to high density residential and rezone the hospital medical zoning to multifamily high density R3 zoning to the regular city council meeting on 12 February 2019. And Ms. Busaka is available to answer any questions you may have about this action to table.
Any questions for Ms. Fusaka?
No, I'd move to table comprehensive plan amendment number 2018-04.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Does this require a roll call or just?
No, sir, I just want to clarify, it's in your motion that's going to be tabled to February 12th, 2019. Is that
Correct. I'm sorry. After I said it, I realized that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously. Next item, please.
The Planning and Zoning Commission, acting as the local planning agency, recommended approval of this action 4-0. Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2019-01 proposes to amend Policy 1.21.1 of the future land use element by changing the maximum residential density from 20 dwelling units per acre to 30 dwelling units per acre within the downtown mixed-use land designation. Ordinance number, 1-2019 proposes to amend Section 28-231 Downtown Mixed-Use DMU Smart Code Intensity and Dimensional Standards Density Uptown Subdistrict from 20 units per acre to 30 units per acre in zoning chapter of the city's Land Development Code. The proposed amendments are consistent with the recommended Land Development Regulation Amendment of the City of Titusville's Economic Strategy Plan adopted in January of 2017. Staff action is to recommends council to conduct a transmittal hearing of CPA 2019-01, density in downtown mixed use, uptown subdistrict, and Ms. Busaka is available to answer questions that you have on this transmittal hearing.
Ms. Busaka, would you just explain what transmittal
Of course.
is?
This process requires, because we are amending the future land use element, it requires that this public hearing be held, and then this, if it moves forward, it will go to the state, where the state will review this for consistency with state policies. They will come back with some recommendations or comments as they see fit, and then it will go back through the public hearing process so that it will go back to both the Planning and Zoning Board, acting as the local planning agency, and then back to this commission for adoption. And I would just say that the staff analysis shows that the uptown area has been recommended to contain higher density, height allowances, and flexibility, and that the staff feels that this is consistent with that provision of the comprehensive plan, which is section 2844, as well as policies 1.2.1 and 1.10.5 of the future land use element.
Any questions of staff from council? I see no lights. I thought you were saying something there, just. Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Are there any cards on this?
Yes, sir, we have one card. It's Woody Rice.
Mr. Rice, good evening, sir.
Good evening, y'all. Woody Rice, 505 Indian River Avenue. And, this is something that is sort of very exciting that's going to happen to this cornerstone, used to be called Sandpoint Park, 300 North Washington. And I'm here representing my client tonight. We were going to make a presentation, but we realized we probably were a little premature in doing that until we had a chance to sit down with staff and work over a developer's agreement so we can bring a little more detail to you all. But this is the really first step in really redoing that entire Sandpoint Plaza area. This amendment, as staff pointed out, it was contemplated that the higher density would be in the downtown and the uptown subdistricts. So this is, the downtown subdistrict has already been changed, and this is just a follow to get the uptown where we need it to be. So we're very excited about that with the revitalization. The other thing that the uptown is approximately 30.5 acres, okay? This is 13.2 of those 30.5 acres that it affects, which is over 43% of the land that this density would change. Part of the development is going to be residential and some mixed use, and those are some of the things we're working out with the proper mix for that area. The water and sewer lines there are very old, so we're going to be absolutely replacing those. Some of them are private. And we have to do it strategically because the little office buildings right there on the other side by the bridge, they still are using those lines. So it's going to take some of that. Part of the development is going to take care of some of the nuisance species, Brazilian pepper and things like that. And of course, if anyone that grew up here remembers the term Lake Lovely. And Lake Lovely was basically a site that wasn't very lovely. It was a lake at one time. And actually, Mr. Severs on P&Z had some knowledge that I didn't have. I recall it as a kid, but he said they actually filled it with construction debris back in the 70s. So we're going to be doing some heavy geotech work to see what we have in that area. The other thing that's really important about this is that it is a cornerstone of entering our downtown. And not only is it going to be such a great improvement with mixed use and residential, but the tax increment financing alone is going to bring a lot of revenue that's going to allow the CRA to do some additional great things to our downtown that we've been working toward for all these years. So I'm excited about the project. We're just asking for your support tonight. It's just a transmittal, and you'll be seeing us. The whole team will be up here to present the developer's agreement and hopefully meet with each one of you one-on-one as we go through that process. So here to answer any questions. We'd appreciate your support tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, Woody, the question I get asked is, when do we get pictures?
Well, we passed out some pictures at P&Z, and then we realized that we were a little premature because we really hadn't shared that with staff.
You're in trouble.
And so staff has always given us very good advice, and they thought it would be better if maybe we sat down with staff. So we have a meeting this Friday, actually, with staff, and we'll be going over the developer's agreement. And I'm a little reluctant to show you what we did because I know that there's a few things that we need to work on in that, but it's going to be really nice. And the next time you see us here, we will have a full-blown presentation.
There's a lot of people in town that want to see that happen.
Oh, just that you come over that bridge from the north side, and it just it needs help.
Trash. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, sir. I'll close the. Are there any other cards, clerk? No, sir. I'll close the public hearing. Any council discussion on this? I'll ask for motion then.
So I'm assuming the motion should be to transmit CPA 2019-01 to the state.
Sufficient, sir?
Does that work?
That works.
Okay.
I have a motion I have a second, Mr. Jordan, Member Jordan. And any further discussion? This does not require a roll call, right? All right. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Next item, sir.
Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CPA 2-2018 Park Avenue subdivision. The applicant has indicated to staff that the application will be amended and is requesting tabling of this item to 26 February 2019 for the first reading and 12 March 2019 for the public hearing. The item will be re-advertised and notices will be mailed to the surrounding property, and staff recommends approval of this. Ms. Bisaka is available to answer any questions that you have, and we have received the amended application.
Okay. What's your pleasure?
I would move to table CPA 02-2018 to February 26, 2019.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Ordinances first reading, we have none. Old business, we have none. New business, we have none. Petitions and requests from the public. Would anybody in the public like to speak at this point? I guess not. Okay. Mayor and council reports. I'm going to let council speak first because I got a few things I want to go over. So, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a couple of things that caught my attention. One of them was in Florida Today this week. It talked about the furlough that some of our friends and relatives are part of, and some of the companies in our area that is doing some special things to support those who are furloughed. And just wanted to read for the record, Inverted Elephant Yoga is offering free yoga. You got Launch Federal Credit Union is giving a $3,000 bank offering at 0%. Too Cool Traffic School, LaCrave, which is just actually haven't just opened. They are giving 25% off of meals for anyone who's affected by the shutdown. Third Culture Kitchen, everyone knows that's 25% off their meal. And then Hummingbird Pantry, they've been providing food to those during the shutdown. I would just like for the council to ask city manager if we could do something for our citizens who are affected by this, as far as billing is concerned, or something to show that we're in this together, because we don't know how long this is going to last, but the pressure that these families have on them for paying their bills, I think this is the time for us to step up to the plate and try to do something, especially if they come in and say, I can't pay this bill or something like that, and it's a legitimate reason. They don't have any money. I think we should just put our hearts out to them and try to help them as much as possible.
What action?
I don't know what the action is. I just think we should, you know, at least let the management knows, the city manager knows that our hearts are going out to these people, and when they do come in, then we should show a little leniency as it relates to their bills. And I don't know what that means, but you know, I'm sure people are very fearful that their light's going to be turned off or their water's going to be turned off because they can't pay their bills.
I have read about certain areas, I guess cities, that will work out somebody is bona fide in this position, that they have worked out a payment plan for them if they can't make all the payments at once. Does that sound acceptable, Mr. City Manager?
Absolutely, we do that now.
Oh, we do it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's already being done, Robert.
Right, you need to advertise it, so everybody knows that, you know, they don't feel the pressure, because a lot of times people just be quiet.
Sure.
You know, and suffer by themselves. So if you can put something out on the website or something that says, you know, you have to prove that you're on furlough, though, not just
Yeah.
try to take it for granted for sure. That's the first thing. Second thing.
Let me just confirm that
oh.
that's doable. All of that is doable that he just requested?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. All right, the second thing is one of our fellow council members lost his wife this week. Sean Ferguson from the city of Rockledge. They're having her funeral on the 2nd of February. And I would ask that, if it's okay with the mayor, if we could send some words of condolences signed by you representing the council, so he knows that our hearts was with him, especially during this tough time.
Absolutely.
For sure. So
Absolutely.
really appreciate that. And the last thing I have is, if I think we all was in one accord, and this one is pretty close to my heart, the Pritchard House. We need to do something, guys, you know, of course, you know. And I know you had a meeting, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because I think we should have a discussion about that, because that house needs to be open for those who are coming to our city. It just makes no sense for it to be closed. So with that, I'll hand
Couldn't
it back
agree
over.
with you more.
Okay, thank you.
The city manager and I forgot who else was in the, were you there? Richard? No?
We had Tom and a couple other staff members. We had Kevin Cook for
Right,
Public Works,
right.
and then
We're
Lisa.
there.
Yep.
We probably had about a 45-minute conversation. It's a unique situation. We explained the frustrations that I and you all mentioned the last time about it not being opened. We were told that there are many problems, and we suggested we have to get past those problems. Roz Foster is in charge of that. We made many suggestions. The only thing, there was one item, and I can't remember what it's called, but I'm sure the city manager does. That was
Sneak peek.
Sneak peek. That seemed to be successful, but they don't do it often enough. And consequently, and they don't open the doors unless somebody calls them, I guess. And that may be a little too strong. Maybe they do have some sort of system, but I couldn't discern any on it. So we do have one of our staff members working with her. We've explained what we want. There has been interaction between her group and through our representative and the Welcome Center to get together and figure out how to do that. Roz has been asked to go back to her group, and there are people there that seem to want to do things. Some maybe don't want to do it so often, but and talk to them about coming up with some system of having them open periodically. I mean, on the same time, the same day, and it doesn't have to be all day long. There were a myriad of other problems, but we said we have to change it. And I don't know what else can be said at this point. We will be getting a report back periodically from our staff member, and I think they're going to, I know, is going to try, I think Roz will try also, I hope, to talk with her people and come up with some solutions. But we were very emphatic about something needs to change. Did I say that fairly, Mr. City Manager? So unless I mean, you're welcome to have a separate meeting with her if you'd like. I assume you'll give her the same suggestions. And I think there is a report if you wanted to get that. If you wanted a copy of what they gave us or the report we
It was
had.
basically the same report that came before council.
Yeah, okay, same one, so.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So, again, if anybody wants to set up a meeting, certainly do that. Either, however you want to do it. I would suggest doing it with her staff member, or our staff member, I guess, the liaison, so that she gets all the information on everything. But in honesty, I think between myself and the city manager and the assistant city manager was there too, we've made about every point you could make on this. And I think there's an understanding at this point. I'm not sure how it will all turn out, however. I don't mean to be just looking that way, but he was asking the questions.
No, absolutely.
Any other questions from anybody?
Yes, sir. A little bit of data that was shared with us is the sneak peek. They opened the Pritchard House during the Let It Snow Friday night event, and they had 160 visitors. As you recall from the report presented to council, they had, previous to that sneak peek, they had 400 visitors all year. So we've asked that the sneak peek, when there's high traffic areas, such as a Friday night event, we would like the house open for a sneak peek. And/or I think we have spokes coming up on the 23rd of February. We'd like the house open for that. There's a lot of people that will be coming to town to participate in that event. She said she would see what she could do. But if we can get 160 to 200 through every Friday night party, which will be held quarterly, I think we've done pretty good.
Thank you, sir. Anything else on that item? No? Who would like to go next?
I don't know. I think we all got 3 things today. But anyway, I appreciate Member Jordan bringing up the nobody losing their water. We can't control electricity and some of those things, but during the shutdown, I think we've probably all thought about, wow, you know, they're going to work sometimes for nothing, and sometimes they're not going to work. I can tell you at the school where I'm Principal Legacy, we have a whole group of parents who have a whole lot more time to volunteer right now, but not a whole lot of groceries coming in. So I appreciate that. I also want to comment, as you all would agree, the Martin Luther King Day Parade was once again incredible. I always am heartwarmed when we can all gather as a city for a parade down South Street and a gathering at Campbell Park. And that always makes me feel good about being here. And then you had a couple marching bands from Baltimore, and things really got rocking. So just once again, my hat's off to the organizers. I've been in that parade every year since the first one, and it just keeps getting better. I also want to thank.
Can I comment?
Certainly,
on that?
absolutely, absolutely.
The only thing that was warm that day was your heart, because the rest of us were freezing.
And it was windy.
However, I have to say that considering the temperature and so forth, it was a great turnout for it. It was, as you said, a very successful event, and it's always a pleasure to be there to honor Dr. King. Go right
Certainly,
ahead,
certainly, and you may want to comment on this next one as well.
Can never tell.
No, you probably will. Kind of a circle of life thing. I want to say thank you to, and how proud I am of a former player, Willie Taylor, who has been the leader and founder of the Fighting Edge for so many years. And I was fortunate enough to be in an event with the mayor on Saturday where he also announced that he's starting a mentoring program in the community called Man Up. And I want to add to that another former player and wrestler who's kind of his right-hand man, Mohamed Daris. I am just amazed at what they've accomplished with so little financial support from book drives, the backpack, back-to-school event, to food. He spoke about the food need now as well. So I know the mayor was very involved with supporting Willie in so many ways as well. And again, for me, it goes back to 8th grade when this guy comes running across the Jackson locker room when we went to visit his Terrier football coaches and just jumped in my arms. And from that point on, he's never ceased his enthusiasm. And with that, I want to go to kind of the circle of life thing, and I probably should have said, go ahead.
Can I just comment on
yeah,
that
see,
one?
I told you.
No, I just want to agree with you wholeheartedly. It's kind of amazing. He had a group of young men out there that have some of them have been with them for 10 years or so.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of them are brand new to the program. All of them had a tragedy ahead of them if they hadn't gone through his program. Most of them either had real problems in school, and I'm talking about being thrown out or all kinds of things, and run-ins with law enforcement. Some of them actually went to jail and so forth, but since they've been with Willie, and Willie teaches them, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. He teaches them boxing, but he teaches them so much more than that. He teaches them that if they want to succeed in anything, they have to work for it. It's not going to come from sitting around or doing bad things or anything else. If they want to stay out of jail and bad situations, they have to get something in their head that they want to do, and then they have to go and work for it. So he starts out with the younger ones, just teaching them how to shake hands and look into somebody in the eyes and speak directly and so forth. I've spoken to so many of them over the few years that I've been involved with them, and he does a great job. He is at this point understanding that it's getting bigger, but he needs more funding, so he is looking for that. And I suggest anybody that cares to talk to him, do it directly, Fighting Edge. I'm sure either the Vice Mayor or myself can give you his phone number. So I'll leave it at that, but he's done it. He's done most of it with he and his wife and a few volunteers over the years, and but it's getting bigger, and he understands he needs help. So, all right, yes, sir.
And I would just add to that, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, how the kind words he had for Chief Lau as well, and how supportive that he and the police department has been of him over in the Gibson Center. So a lot of good things going on over there, and testimony after testimony, you know, concerning what's going on over the Gibson Center. They've just, as I think Mayor noted, expanded their area. Jeff Davis with Parks and Recreation has been a tremendous help to him as well. So there is a lot of collaboration going on there, but you know, kind of that circle of life. You know, here Willie was one of my players, Mohammed one of my players, and they're doing some great things, and I'm very proud of them. And to go to a sadder note, it's just kind of hit me that recently Titusville High School has lost a lot of iconic faculty members, and I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of throw their name out there while we have some time, and that is longtime athletic director and good friend of mine, Tim Sparkman, was also an athletic director at Astronaut High School, passed away. Barbara Pariso, and this is a 35, 40-year teacher at Titusville High School who taught economics and back in the day, I think we called it typing, but, you know, and business skills, that sort of thing. She was always everybody's favorite. And then Debbie Blanner, who is a national winner in teaching German, Teacher of the Year kind of thing. She ran trips over to Germany every other year, but everybody who has been to Titusville High School in the last 40 years knows these people. And I just came from a viewing on Sunday of Vivian Herkett, who was that, you know, motherly front desk worker for at least 20 years. And it's like, it's just kind of hitting me that all of a sudden, you know, the circle of life is taking effect here with Willie Taylor, Mohammed Darius, and then the moving on. So that being said, I just thought it was worthy of note. And again, it all comes together. Something like the Martin Luther King Day Parade. We're all in this together, you know, shut down or not.
Okay, next.
Okay, so before I go into my things, I wanted to touch on what you said about Willie Taylor. Michael Cador, actually, he does a lot of those events down south, even some up here. So maybe, speaking of collaboration, if they could partner up, because I've seen him do things with the fathers, with the men, teaching them how to tie ties. So, I mean, that's a powerhouse group right there that I think could do a lot of good. So, I don't know, now you're making me want to get involved with that. A couple things. That probably the mayor's going to speak on as well. I did have the opportunity to go to the delegation meeting last week. It was 4.5 hours. I did sneak out to get some food for a little bit. But there were two hot topic items that were addressed. One was the CRA issue with trying to get Titusville, Cocoa, and Melbourne, which were pre-charter CRAs, they were saying to be on the same playing field, but it was really, the way it was written scared me a lot. But fortunately enough, I appreciated the mayor speaking, not on behalf of us, but as a citizen, and then to see the votes come out that all the delegates, except for the one sponsoring it, did not appreciate it or opposed it at this time. The meeting is on Space Coast Daily on Facebook if you guys do want to see it. It was very interesting. The other item, though, that I wasn't aware of or didn't know much about, they brought up partisan elections. Representative Fine was interested in having, I guess, local elections still remain nonpartisan, but just having it on the ballot, which was interesting. So I wasn't really clear on what that meant, but that did get some votes there. I think they got 3 of them. So just to keep you guys in the loop of kind of what was happening there, if you want to do some more investigative work. The other thing, as you guys know, I just wanted to keep you guys informed as being on the Space Coast League of Cities board now. I'm learning a lot more things and what that involves. So one of the things that I had the opportunity to do was back in November attend their legislative conference. And so it was very new to me, so I was just going there trying to take it all in. What they do is they have 5 different committees that you can pick to be on, ranging from finance, taxation, land use, municipal administration, utilities. And I believe that I can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that you guys, if you're interested, you can still join one of those committees, even though I'm the board member, if you have interest in them. It was very interesting for me to watch. I went to the municipal administration one. They were talking about short-term rentals, medical marijuana, things that are really pertinent to us, a lot of home rule items. So that will be coming forward. I think there's a conference coming up in March where we actually get to go to Tallahassee and advocate on some of these issues. And then what they do in these committees is they discuss, we have the opportunity to bring our priorities to them, and then they vote on the top 3 that they really want to concentrate on. So as we have our priorities, if the state decides to, or the committee decides that this is a real pressing issue, it gets that additional leverage, which is pretty cool. Lastly, speaking of the medical marijuana, I did want to bring that up to you guys again. I don't know what's happening with it from the state's perspective. I have seen some items coming up already on the news regarding the governor's point of view on it. I know when we discussed it and when it was voted on to go ahead and allow it, I remember there being pretty much a good consensus of us kind of being frustrated that the state is not allowing us much control as to where we can allow them. So I didn't know if you guys, while we're here at the point we are, I know we have one medical marijuana dispensary already open in Titusville. If you wanted to see it or had any interest in, if we were to go ahead and move to banning it and keep that one potentially as lawfully non-conforming, so at least we have one available to our residents, but we're not kind of opening ourselves up to potentially them popping up in areas that we wouldn't necessarily want them. As we kind of see what the state does, as we potentially move to recreational, I guess my concern would be I want us to be in a safe area where if we move to that, we don't have these already opened up and we have to grandfather places in that we maybe wouldn't have wanted recreational, but the business is already there. So from my standpoint, I guess I feel as long as we're providing it to our residents right now, I'd be open to it if we wanted to potentially have the city attorney look into what that would look like. I'm not sure what the state legislature is going to do, and I want to make sure that we're in a good situation for whatever does happen. So I didn't know if anybody had any thoughts on that.
Going backward here.
I know.
From the last one. No, that's all right. You had a lot to say.
I did.
That's okay. That's fine. Anybody have any comments on the last part with the medical marijuana?
I think for me, I need to sit down and really think about it. When we talked about it last time, there were areas that, I was just like, we don't need this in this area. I know it says 500 feet from schools and churches, but 500 feet just did not seem very far. I think Dan said, well, doesn't that mean where they have the urgent care outside at Titusville High, they could put one there? So it would be worth a discussion at least. I don't know if we could do it or not. And Mr. Broom's looking a little cross-eyed there.
My recollection from the statute is you had a choice. Either you ban them or you treat them like pharmacies, one or the other. It wasn't an in-between where you apply other regulations. And council at the time chose to treat them like pharmacies.
Correct.
Now, if the question is now that we have one, we're going to go back and ban them, if that's council's direction, I would have to research the statutes, look at the preemption, see the ability to do that if that's your interest. But I wouldn't feel comfortable answering the question now that you could do that. I would need to look at that. Because those were the options, ban them or treat them like pharmacies.
Yeah. And that was always our concern was, there were these areas we didn't necessarily want them in the middle of residential neighborhoods.
And it's an area, it is still an area of concern, particularly since while the current one here and others that are opening elsewhere are purportedly and probably are at this point just for medical purposes. I've heard recently where medical means the oil, and we've actually always had the oil for the kids and whatnot. That was frankly a play by a certain lawyer who proposed it because it was for the kids. We had this stuff for the kids already, but that door was opened. Now they are opening a second door. Our new governor, as I have read recently, wants to open it as far as using marijuana for smoking. And there are two types of things. One, the oil is a low THC. Does anybody know whatever is euphoric in marijuana is not in that oil, THC.
It's THC.
And so when you get to smoking, it becomes more difficult to discern what's in it and so forth. And I think that's heading us down to what that lawyer has already said. He's going after recreation next. So I agree with Member Stokel that if we can limit it, it might be a good time to do it. Although I understand what the city attorney is saying, because it's when we've allowed one already, I'm not sure what we can do, and that's what I think he wants to take a look at, or at least in part. Is that correct? If it's
I would have to look at it if the majority of council was interested in be looking at that.
Exactly.
I'd like to, at least theoretically, know the answer.
Yeah. Well, is everybody? We have a consensus on that?
First of all, I'm coming at this green for sure, but I think what I just heard was, of course, we're okay with the medical marijuana. Right. Now that the governor is talking about having them smoke it, then that's more recreational? Is that?
Not necessarily, but it's harder to make a case, and it's particularly difficult for these guys to do anything, because then the fact that they're standing there smoking something that smells like marijuana is not necessarily a reason to stop them, since it could be perfectly legitimate. And then you get into all kinds of issues.
Okay, so right now gave the approval, we have one store now. And what you're asking is for us to look at it again to see if we want to ban.
See if we can.
We accept what we have, but there will not be any others. Is that what you're asking?
Potentially at this time, could that be something that we could do? Since we do have one, we're offering it to our citizens. And this is really coming from what the state put on us that's made it very frustrating, I feel like, on our part, because they said either allow it wherever pharmacies are or ban it. And prior to them doing that, we were looking at allowing it in certain areas, what would be best for our community. And it just concerns me as we're starting to see these developments come up. We have these exciting things happening, and then we have no control over this potentially that I do foresee coming in the future. And I just like to, again, to me, it's a home rule issue. Just have a little bit more control over it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and certainly they need to be in a certain place for sure. I guess my concern would be if we have agreed that they're okay, this one is out there, correct? And now your thinking is maybe there's a possibility that we say that one's okay, but none other is okay. And of course, as a business person, I'm saying, wait a minute, you just told this guy that any business that's going to happen is going to be in your building. It's not going to be anyplace else. And I would see, if I decided that I wanted to have a medical marijuana building, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue the city because it's allowed, but you've now stopped it, and now there's only one.
That's what I want the city attorney to look at.
Well, I know. I just think it's going to be really complicated.
Restraint of trade is what it is.
Yeah.
So
really restrict
that's
yourself.
what our city attorney will look into and come
Okay,
back
if you want to do that, then open up that can of worms. I just think it could blow up in our faces for
well,
sure. So.
he didn't say we can. He just said he's going
Well,
to
I know,
research.
I understand. You're curious?
I'm curious. I
Be
want to know
curious.
the answer. You know,
I think the attorney want to say something.
You're next. Are you through? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I think the attorney wanted to, he pressed the button.
No, that's fine. I understand there's more discussion, and of course, I will only do that if a majority of council is interested. But understand, it may not be a black and white answer. You understand, it's anything's subject to challenge, and right now, the statute's told you in the state, either you ban it or you treat it like pharmacies. Now, if you treat it like pharmacies, we want to turn around and ban it, so it may not, there's a lot of issues may be implicated, as been discussed up here. It may not be a clear-cut answer, and of course, subject to challenge. How many people have bought properties in anticipation of being able to do that based on your law? It may not be an easy answer.
and it may be something that,
You can't-
a road that we shouldn't go down, but I would like to know the answer, and I understand it's going to be a shade of gray and not black and white. I was when we voted for it. Was it me?
No, it's not your turn.
I'm sorry.
You originally got in a debate, but Vice Mayor is next.
I'm sorry, David.
That's okay.
Jolene.
4 or 5. I pretty much agree with everything out here. And how can you do that? Well, I certainly think that Member Jordan's correct. It's going to be a wild can of worms.
Yes, it is.
I also would say, it was kind of mentioned in there, I think again by Member Jordan, that if you're a business owner and now this one guy gets all the business, I assure you that that guy would come and talk to us and say, yeah, you're right. You need to close all, don't open any others because,
right.
man, I'm going to make some killing here. We can't forget the fact that medical marijuana was approved 76% in this county. Otherwise I certainly would probably have had some other thoughts about that. And I did. We tabled it or whatever we did. We delayed it like 3 or 4 times trying to get the state to open up and help us out a little bit. What I'd really like to see happen, and it would have to go through the state, and they don't seem to be very concerned about what we think, is that we need to have the right in our city to determine where they can go. And then the other thing was, when we were talking about this and debating this for a matter of months, actually, that there was going to be a limited number of these dispensaries in the regions. And I can't remember those things, and I would like to have that perhaps readdressed and give me an idea, or I can go back and try to find it myself. But it wasn't like you could have, 6 of these within, one city or something. There was some kind of limit on how many you could have. And then another concern I have on this particular issue is some of the things that the governor is saying that surprised me greatly, I must admit. I'll just leave it at that. I was very surprised to hear him speak of some of the, pushing for the smoking of marijuana, et cetera. That's not what I envisioned, medical marijuana, and I'm not the expert, but what I envisioned was, you have to get a referral, a prescription. It's very controlled, and now we're going to be able to smoke it, and the concerns that the mayor mentioned about that is a concern to me. And I will say, very clearly to anybody that wants to hear it, there'll not be a yes vote from me on anything to do with recreational use ever. That's not what that was about when we went that direction. It was about medical marijuana, not recreational marijuana. I'll leave it at that.
I concur. Unfortunately, as I said at the time, we're opening a door that we didn't understand, and it was being sold to us as a bill of goods for medical marijuana and the kids. So it's unfortunate that we, I mean, it wasn't this council that had the 76% of the votes that it took. So it was sold to everyone. Okay, now you, Coach. Here you go.
Now I can go?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to say that I'm not crazy about the idea of smoking marijuana. Understand it's medical marijuana, but my understanding is there are some health risks associated with smoking it, cancer. On the other hand, I'm assuming if you already had cancer, that sort of doesn't really matter. I think the medical marijuana was good, and I only say that because I had a friend whose daughter had seizures, and they used the THC oil. That did not stop it. That the prescription medication did not stop her seizures, but the medical marijuana does. Very good. So there are some circumstances where I think it's very important to have that option for the doctors and for the patients. So
your distinction, I'm not quite sure of. I think I am, but I'd like you to clarify. Medical marijuana is the oil.
Right. Right.
Okay. Now we're talking about smoking.
Correct. Which causes
supposedly
cancer.
Yeah. Well, it's supposedly reduced THC in it and so forth and so on. Again, I already voiced the problem where all of a sudden everybody can do it and not.
Yeah, it does create a problem, but I would like to see us have the ability to control the areas that it's in.
Okay. Are we have a consensus to ask the attorney to research it, which is, you're not going to even want to research it?
I have a problem with opening this thing up.
Oh, we're not opening it up. It's open.
Well, I know, but, you know, I think what I'm hearing is basically we don't want the opportunity for anyone to smoke this stuff, and we don't want these stores going up any place, and we don't have the authority to tell them where they can go, correct?
Correct.
So you want the attorney to look at how we can restrict what
He
we
may
have
come
right
back
now.
and say we can't. But we'll know.
Just don't want 1,000 people in here saying, give us our smoke. You know, so.
We already got that.
All right, well, you don't need consensus to do that, right? All you need is majority.
Yeah, we just need a
So
motion.
Go ahead and get your majority, because I'm saying no. And then I'm going to tell you, I told you so.
Okay, let's get back together here. All right, I need a motion to, whatever you want, but I would.
I move to have the city attorney look into what our options are at this point moving forward with medical marijuana, whether it be if we potentially would have one that's lawfully non-conforming, what it would look like, how many are we limited to at this point before the state begins its session. Just, again, and this is just to be a little bit proactive so we know what's coming, because I really don't know what's going to happen this session. And I'd like to just be, again, aware of what we can and can't do at this point now that we have one open.
So your motion,
Yes, to have the city attorney look into what our options are with medical marijuana as far as banning it, again, potentially, or, yeah, just leave it at that.
that's it. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
No, I just have to at least say, I have to kind of agree with Member Jordan there, as I did already. I think when you get to the term banning, after we already approved, that gets complicated. I like the part when you said, look into our options, because I asked the same thing, and it may not even be the attorney, maybe it's the staff. I would like to see again, how many can go in a certain area? I mean, I don't even know that right now. I should, because of something that was discussed a year ago. I shouldn't say I should, but it's out there somewhere. How many can they have? I want to know that. And then, again, looking into whoever that is, I like that. But we put the word banning out there, it sounds like we're trying to turn a ship around in the middle of
Well,
the
it's
trip.
not in her motion.
Well, she did, she just said banning, that's when I hit the button.
Did you say?
I said
No, she said-
options and then potentially,
Nah,
whatever, but
we gotta get
banning,
away
yes.
from banning. I like
Okay,
looking
look
for
at our
I can
options
second
moving
the
forward.
options.
I
Okay.
thought you had said that one was off.
No.
So- But you have now, right?
Yep.
The motion is clear, the second is clear? Okay.
Okay.
Uh-oh. The
I'm
attorney
not
is clear?
clear.
You need to be clear.
Because I heard the first motion was to look at the option to ban them. Then Member Diesel said he didn't like the idea of looking into banning them. So then it went back to options. So I'm not sure if the options includes the city attorney providing you a the law on whether you can ban them, or is it just looking at the options of how many can come into the city? I just want to understand what it is that you're asking me to
You're
provide.
making the motion, but I think she meant both. I mean,
Yeah, I guess I'm
can it
curious.
be- Let me just,
Yeah.
can it be banned? And if it can't, what are our options on where to put them? Is that pretty much what you're?
Yeah, I just would kind of like to see if you've seen other cities that have gone through this process, if any have switched potentially of allowing it and then reversed it. I don't know. Or if people have allowed it and then moved, or have banned it and then opened it back up. I'd just like to see, because I think this was very awkward for across the state when we had this happen. A lot of people banned it, a lot of people allowed it. And I think when we allowed it, we didn't necessarily all were like gung-ho on allowing it everywhere that's allowed. I don't know, I just want to be a little bit more proactive in what's happening. Member Diesel's point, the governor made some comments that to me were very surprising, and I would just like to make sure that we are ahead of this and potentially not putting ourselves in a situation where we do have places that are opening up and popping up, and then we're like, oh, now what do we do? I would like a little bit more clarity, I guess, on that, what our options are moving forward, and what other cities have done at this point.
That part I
If that
can
makes
do.
sense?
Yes,
Is that enough clarity?
maybe a little more than.
I know, sorry. Okay. All right.
And again, it might not be, as I said earlier, what I'm looking for might not even be from city attorney. I would like to be reminded of how many can be in a certain region. It seemed to me, we talked about dispensaries, but there was a certain region that they came from. And I need to be reminded of that. I would like to be reminded of that. And then I'd also like to be reminded of what our options are. And I know there are not many yet, but of location. And after that, I don't want to get into now we're going to go back and ban what we approved. I think we look bad when we do that.
Are we getting too extensive on this, Mr. City Attorney? We try to bring it down, and now it's popped up again here.
I'll get with staff, we'll look at what's going on out there, we'll look at potential options, look at the
That's okay.
statute,
It's okay.
and that may generate
First we
more
have to see
discussion, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that sounds good.
If-
I have
if
one
that's
more
good.
light. No, I don't.
No, Dan just, I
Okay.
think that was it. I agree with Dan.
That's fine. Very good. I see no more lights, so all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed?
No.
Passes with one exception. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Does anyone else have anything else? All right, my turn, right? Okay. I spoke at our state legislative meeting last Tuesday down in Palm Bay as the city attorney, and I was accompanied by the city attorney and city manager. We did see Member Stokel down there. A comment was made by a county commissioner, Mr. Tobias, and please no comments, today that accused me of certain things, and I want to make it clear to you that I told the the chairman of the delegation, who was in charge of the meeting, that I was speaking only for myself. And both the city manager, all three of the people that were there, heard me say that. For some reason, Mr. Dobaya either did not hear it, or I don't know what, but he said I did not say that, and yes, I did. I would like at this point, because I think this is going, he said several other things, and let me just say there were two items, as Member Stokel said. One was partisan elections, where you put whether you're Democratic or Republican. The cities don't do that. One of the problems with it is then we'd be into party politics, and at this level it doesn't seem like a good idea, and most of the cities don't do that. If we ever wanted to do that, we could do it. We don't need a state law to do that. That's home rule. So it's another situation where they were, the implication was they were taking away our home rule, and that motion failed. It needed a 4-2 majority, as there were 6 members, and they got a 3-3 on that one. The motion on the CRA, after much discussion, and frankly, I had no intention of speaking at it until, again, Mr. Tobias said that we had been found illegally doing something with CRA money, which we have not. All of you know, with the exception of Mr. Jordan, Member Jordan, because he wasn't here, but we went through a complete inspection by Carol Westmoreland, who is is the expert for the state, and she had no problems with anything we did. The only thing there was some question on, and it was not illegal, she made a point of that, but the downtown parties and so forth could be construed as an issue. Well, there are at least, that's the other part, the chairman said there was a finding against us. A finding takes somebody in authority, being a judge or a jury, to look at the legislation and make a determination. The only person who initially spoke at a request of Mr. Dobaya, I believe, but I don't know that for sure, some years ago, was Scott Knox, the attorney at the time for the county, and he said in his opinion, it was not a good practice or maybe even a legal practice. However, that was his opinion. That's not a finding. He works for the county. And I'm not saying anything about Mr. Knox. He's a very fine attorney, but still it was his opinion. And I said that it's not a finding, it's an opinion. And I won't go further into that, but lawyers, yeah, I will. No, I won't. I'll leave that alone. But at any rate, it was a difficult situation, and today, frankly, and oh, by the way, there has been at least 2, maybe 3 findings by the Attorney General. If you want to go ahead, please.
Well, the Attorney General's office has addressed the issue of using CRA funds to promote your CRA. And as stated, Mr. Knox has evaluated this. His opinion, he doesn't agree with some of those opinions. Some aspects of those opinions he does agree with. But yes, there have been opinions that have found that it is not a violation of the Community Redevelopment Act to utilize CRA funds to promote your downtown.
And in point of fact, Mr. Knox, after the initial saying that also, and I have the paper down here, but I'm not going to read it, said that that was his opinion, but he backed off it quite a bit. And again, I'll defer to you if you want to go into that detail.
I have that written opinion from Mr. Knox regarding City Titusville. He had provided to the County Commission. I'd be glad to make that copy for each of you to read that, and then I'd be glad to answer any questions you have about that.
And what I'm getting to at this point, if everybody is in favor of us retaining our CRA, which I certainly am. It does a lot for our downtown, and it's, again, it's TIF financing. There was some mention by a, or an article, I guess, or something. Well, maybe it was an article. It was on, probably on media, social media or something. The fellow from Palm Bay, the council member down there, DeFrey, or city manager, can you help me on his name? I don't recall it.
Are you talking about from Melbourne?
Yeah, no, from Melbourne, right.
Yeah. Apparently he did an editorial.
Yeah, yeah.
And he voiced his opinion
Yeah, but
of
he
CRAs.
didn't have his information. Correct. A TIF is tax increment financing for a particular area. The money comes from that area. Some of it would have gone to the county, and some of it would go to the city. 60% comes from the city, 40% would go to the county. So we actually pay more than the county does. But it is only in the CRA area, the people who pay the tax, a portion of it goes back to them. And it's tax increment financing. When the CRA was formed, there was a level of taxes at that point, and then over the years, as that tax goes up, that differential is used for the CRA. For many years, and I won't go into too much detail here, but for many years, we didn't have any advancement in our taxes, or if we did, it went up and then it went down again because of the Space Center and many other issues, the Challenger. Every time we had a problem of any kind, our economy used to just close down. So it actually saved us from just having a completely dilapidated downtown. Also, it's a matching grant. The owners of the buildings and so forth have to match the grant, so it's not like we're paying for everything, but we're keeping our town in some sort of order in the worst of times. Now, Ed, by the way, the first thing we did was do the downtown commons with that money, and for many, many years after that, we didn't have any money. The only money we had was enough to pay off that loan. So for many years that we had the CRA, it really wasn't as good as it could have been if we continued. When the towers came in, Harbor Point, that's when we started to have some money to actually do something, and that was just a few years ago. At any rate, I spoke in favor of it. However, I could not say I was speaking for the whole council, nor did I say that. In fact, I said exactly the opposite. But I think it would behoove me, and I hope the council, that if I went back down there, if you all agree, and we'll have to have a motion on it, that we do want to retain our CRA, and that I have the ability to speak for the whole council on that item, I would certainly appreciate that. I don't want to be in the same position I was the last time. It shouldn't have been a problem, but it worked its way out that way. So if you will do that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I can go. I just need to have clarity. You're planning on going to the county commission meeting to do something, or if there are opportunities?
If there is an opportunity.
If there's an opportunity,
yeah.
you can say that you've talked to the council.
As I understand, we may be getting a letter. It was, Mr. DeBaya declared today that he was going to send a letter to the Attorney General. I'm not sure what he's going to say in it, but he did say that. And secondly, as I understood it, but I may not have, that he was going to send some sort of letter here, but that may no longer be the case. I was told that he probably would, he may have withdrawn that, and I didn't catch that part of it. But yes, exactly. If I have to go down to legislative delegation or up to Tallahassee or anywhere, I'd like to be able to speak for the whole council and say that we do want our CRAs to continue, and and we'll impart on them our history and so forth, and that's what.
Okay. I don't think you need a motion on that. I think by consensus, I think we all agree
I'd like to have a
there.
motion so that I can say we voted on it. I don't want to leave any door open
Okay.
because I didn't leave any door open, and I was chastised severely
Yeah,
today
yeah.
on public television for things I never said.
Okay. Well, if you're going to have the opportunity to go down there or something occurs, then I think you should have the authority to say that it was discussed at our meeting, and we're all in agreement that we want our CRAs to stand, for sure. So I'll make that motion if that's a
And that
requirement.
the mayor has the right to speak.
Yeah.
Second.
I have
Yeah.
a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Can I, for clarification as well, I want him to do that as well because I want to give you that support. But it would, maybe I'm wrong on this, but it seemed to me that wherever you go, you're the mayor of Titusville. And you represent the city of Titusville wherever you go at 24 hours a day. That being said, and maybe I just don't understand all those inner workings, but I am glad we have now absolutely positively had a motion, a second, and a unanimous vote that you represent the entire council and the city of Titusville, which of course I still thought was the case before that, but now we've done it.
Well, I appreciate that, and just to clarify, no, I can't
can't
speak
do that,
unless we
man.
have voted on it.
Right.
On any particular item.
Right, I agree.
I have to say, it's only my opinion, but it got so silly that I had my mayor shirt on, and I am the mayor, and I was, said that indicated I was speaking for, or the indication that was given was, well, he had his mayor shirt on.
Yeah.
And so that's how silly this all got. But at this point, I think we've done what I needed to have, and I appreciate it, and I will always represent the city as I feel the majority of the people feel. So with that, I thank you very much. I do not have, let me just see if I have anything else. I don't know if I talked, I just will go over one. No, yes, I did. On the partisan elections, we can do that at any time if we wanted to. I do not think it's a good idea because then you get political money in it and all kinds of things, and it's just not a good thing. So with that, anybody else have anything they'd like to speak about? If not, city manager's report.
Yes, sir. One information item. The city's annual strategic planning cycle kicks off on 2 February 2019. That's a Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning here at City Hall. All residents, business owners, and civic leaders are invited to provide input to the City Council on ideas and recommendations to improve the quality of life, enhance economic development, and allocate the city's budget resources. Additionally, on the 29th of January, that's this week, you have the CBDG programming special meeting. And the Titusville Talking Points is now available online. We've distributed some hard copies to council and some others. And if you need additional copies, please let us know and we'll get them to you. Subject to your questions, that completes my report.
Any other questions for the city manager? Thank you, sir. Mr. City Attorney, do you have anything you'd like to speak on?
One clarification, sir.
Yes, sir.
We do have the ability to set up a payment plan for water. And I just wanted clarification. This will be for furloughed federal workers only, not necessarily contractors, because that would be very hard to track down.
Hold on a second. Since I was a contractor at one time, you got to be careful about this because they aren't receiving any money either. So the dilemma that I have is officially you aren't supposed to be able to show your badge as identification. But there's got to be some kind of way that we could help those who work for the government and those who are subcontractors to the government, because none of them are getting their money. And I don't think it would be fair for us to say, if you're a government employee, then we're going to give you some special dispensation, but since you're a nasty contractor.
How long
you don't
has
have
it have to be since they were a contractor or a subcontractor?
No, they're contractors now.
Well,
That's a clarification that I'm requesting because I heard federal workers set up a payment plan if at their request. But as we were discussing it, my light came on in my brain and said, well, there's more actual contractors that are affected than federal workers right
Right,
now.
yeah.
And I would have a hard time identifying a contractor.
Well, how are you going to identify the federal contractor?
They're going to show me their pay stub that says no pay.
Okay, you can do the same. I mean, we know who the contractors are at the Space Center.
But do we know that they are currently a contractor?
If they have a pay stub.
Yeah, it's going to have the date on it. Well, the last time they got paid, right?
Man,
I don't know. That's why I'm having a little challenge trying to identify how we will do that.
We understand the intent, we can look at it. We also have to make sure we don't run afoul of our bonding documents that say treat everybody
understand it.
equally,
Right.
no free water, so we'll have to look at
Well,
that
it's
as
not
well.
free.
Well, but treat everybody equally, we have to look at that.
No, I understand
And
that.
But we understand the intent, and
Yeah.
we certainly can work with folks through the payment plans to our best ability, sir.
Okay.
Okay. But the last thing, the most important thing, I just think we need to be able to wrong word, market it, but have it out there so people know without having to ask. Because I just believe there are people who are very proud who don't want to have to ask for that support when they actually need it. So if we could advertise is the word, advertise in such a way that people know there's help from the city if you are a furloughed worker, that we can help you with your water bill. Does that make sense?
And that, just as a second clarification, water's the only thing that we at the city do. So if your power's, you're going to need to work with FPL.
So we
Water's important.
have two different situations. One we can do right away, the other we have to research.
I can't do
Well, I don't mean
anything to
right away,
FPL.
I mean, what?
Sir, I can't influence FPL at all. We have nothing to do with FPL.
No, I'm not saying anything.
Well-
I'm talking about water only.
Yes, sir, just water.
We have the federal workers that have pay stubs and can designate. Then we have contractors, which are a different category. So you're going to research?
Yes, sir.
The other one?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I'm
The first one
sorry.
will be relatively easy. The second one may or may not be possible. I don't know. We'll see.
I hope so. Okay.
and
Is
can I,
that,
can I add?
yeah, sure.
I was
You're
going
like
to say
something. I was just
the
getting to
bad
you.
part for the subcontractors, or the employees working for the subcontractors, the federal employees will probably get their back pay.
Back pay, yeah,
The subcontractors,
Probably
they
will not.
probably will not.
all right.
So
That's the point.
they're going to be hurting.
That's the point. Absolutely. Do we need a motion on that, or is it?
No, sir, I just needed
consensus?
to clarify that we have the ability to set up a payment program. I just wanted to make sure
I think we have
we were
consensus.
meeting the intent of what council is looking for.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Nope, okay. I think we have completed
Hit it,
the
man.
meeting.
Hit it.
This meeting is adjourned.
There you go.